Blessed afternoon, collective. How's it going? I'm exhausted. I just feel so very tired, and it seems like all I want to do is sleep. I am sleeping, just not getting enough of it, it seems. I don't know. This is just the way I'm experiencing energy at the moment. Whether or not this extends into the collective, I don't know. But there's a lethargy, there's a sluggishness, there is a weighted sensation. It's not exactly heavy, it's just weighted, like fog laying low in a valley, that kind of thing. And in addition to that, there's definitely a sadness, big sad energy is the way that I wrote it down this morning. And I'm here to embrace everything. None of this is bad. None of it is wrong, nor is it something that shouldn't be here or that I don't want. It's just what is. What is simply is what is. That's it. And the denial of it, the rejection of it, doesn't change it, just creates resistance, creates suffering. So it simply is what is. There is a sense of longing, a sense of sadness. There's a desire just to hug somebody, honestly. Just that, just to be held, to share company. And then, of course, there is, in tandem with that, the awareness that one is never alone. In fact, I am sharing company with all that is, presently. I am surrounded by energy, surrounded by love. Everything that is here and now. That includes very conscious, very alive, and very specifically aware of me energy. Energy that is aware of this incarnation, aware of this experience of self and life as it is currently happening, engaged with this, in support of this, literally just surrounding and pouring appreciation and love through and over this experience of self. All of that is here. All of that is here. And the other is included too. The experience of ego, of the mind, this experience of sadness. It's all absolutely correct and allowed to be. And my desire is simply to honor it as it is, to bear witness to it, to reject nothing, not identify with it either. It's not exactly mine. It's not my sadness, but it is present in my experience. And I accept that. So, that is what is. I want to pull a reading. We are very close, bumping right up against that new moon in Virgo. And it's a strange sensation. That energy is weird. I don't know how else to put it. It feels a little bizarre. It feels a little hair-raising, a little bit spooky. It's unnerving. There's a sort of just weirdness to it that is confusing and triggering things. What? I'm not entirely sure. But it is creating this antsiness, this suspense, a feeling of suspense. Certainly that is permeating throughout the energy because a lot is changing, and with the awareness of change tends to be an awareness of the sort of uncertainty, the unknown, which of course ego naturally, the mind naturally reacts to with suspense, anticipation, a bit of tension, apprehension, anxiety, all of these things. So all of that is to be expected, but it's a it's a weird black pool, and I'm not sure how else to describe it, and I don't know what's coming from it other than everything is rising to the surface, as it must, as it continues to. Everything that's been repressed, everything that's been ignored, it's coming back. It always does. It's coming back faster and faster, harder, stronger, all of these things. And it's sort of just rising, kind of like the Swamp Thing. I'm just getting the image of something emerging from a marsh, and it's very alien and creepy, but it's inescapable. It's there. It is making eye contact with you. It's right there. There is a little bit of the sense of, is this really happening? Is this real? Yes, it is. Oh my God. That kind of thing. Things that we had scarcely let ourselves believe becoming evident. That's there too. I don't know. Let's pull a reading. Let's just see what the hell is going on. That is my preamble. All of this a ramble of self-expression. I did not really shuffle the cards when I put them back yesterday, so I'm going to do that. But why the hell not? Let's just see what's here. 9 of Wands at the bottom with the Fool. There's that, I knew, okay. I could feel that moon energy. Something coming out of the dark. Coming, like creeping through the woods. We're tired here. It is something that has been slowly wearing away. Wearing down. Wearing us down. Wearing us thin. We can't keep it in anymore. We can't keep it in under this energy. And there is this sense of everything has changed and nothing looks the same. It's all unfamiliar. Where perhaps just the day before, we looked outside and perceived a garden of roses. We look outside today and we see that it's all withered and overgrown. It's just a bunch of brambles and thorns. And suddenly, we don't want that. We realize now that's what it's been this whole time. We've been under this sort of spell, this veil, believing in an illusion. We've been stuck here, asleep, for a long time. Now we're waking up because the energy around us has changed and revealed this. Revealed what? The toxin, the devil, the illusion. Devil energy is illusion. It lives in the mind, can't live in the soul. Something has changed that has removed that veil of perception and brought this into the light, where it was able to survive because it was in the shadows, it was in the dark, it was on the outskirts where we couldn't quite see it. It's being brought out. It's been brought out. It does have to do with these connections. I am pulling on the soulmate cycle, but I am continuously doing this with the intention of having this be a sample for general collective as I try to apply it to the ascension of humanity, the balance of energy. But this is, I just keep getting contract off this card. And with the devil especially, there's a due. Something is due. A debt is due to be paid. And it will be collected. If not in this lifetime, in the next. But the sensation is, we're not waiting. We're not waiting. It's time for this to happen now because our soul has decided this. Our soul said, this is the lifetime. This is the lifetime I learn this lesson. This is the lifetime I bring this energy to balance. Karmic debt is just energy that's been put out of balance because of unconscious behavior, ego-driven behavior, same thing. The soul said, this is the lifetime where I become conscious enough to allow this energy to come to balance. And it's time for it to. It's time. It's time to look at this thing rising out of the swamp, to meet it head on, and to pay the piper, to face the music. Yeah, it's time to repay. I don't know. It's a queer feeling. I just had cards fall out. I'm just shuffling now for Judgment and the Three of Wands. It's time to review this. It's time to look it in the eye. It's something is coming up that we've tried to look away from. We cannot look away from it. Not anymore. Not now. Now, we agreed on this. We agreed to do this. We agreed to resolve this karma, to have these experiences in this lifetime. It is scripted in some fashion. There's always free will, and I cannot predict free will, and neither can the universe. That's why the universe is so incredibly flexible. I have cards just falling out as I'm trying to shuffle here. The plan is not rigid. It's more of a framework, which is why it's so perfect, because it is totally adaptable. It accepts all things. But there are certain things that we request and we agree before incarnating to experience. And very often we ask for assistance in learning a certain lesson. We want to have a certain experience, we want to learn this lesson, and we ask for assistance from the universe, from the rest of ourself, in the completion of that. And what you ask is given. You have to ask. You have to ask. Nothing can be done without your permission. You are the divine deliberate creator, and what you say goes. But what you ask for, what you give permission for, is delivered as requested. We have asked to bring this to balance. We have asked for assistance in bringing this to balance. We have asked for these debts to be paid, for this karma to be completed. We have made the agreement of our own higher will for this to happen. And in many cases, we've asked in this lifetime from our heart of hearts, which means asking with free will for this to take place. So there's nothing standing in the way of it. It's going to happen. It's here to happen. It has been requested. It is delivered. We've even requested it to flow around the resistance of free will. Obstacles will be removed. Things will be shifted. Everything will change so that this debt can be repaid. I've had 3 cards fall out just as I was shuffling, really to put things back together. The only card that fell out face up is the Empress. So what about the Empress? 8 swords and 4 of cups. I mean, it speaks for itself. I know that if you are one who has been following this channel, this cycle, anything to do with the soulmate cycle or the twin flame journey, any of that, we fucked up. How do I even put this? We let fear keep us from something really amazing. Something that was in alignment with our own self, with our own energy, our own intuition. We've been pushing down the feminine energy within. And the result of that is feeling stuck. Until we come back to review this, and that's what everything is repeating to show us. You push this down and you suffer for it, but it's your choice. You have the choice to continue pushing down the feminine energy, pushing down the soul, the emotion, the intuition. You have the choice to keep rejecting that, rejecting yourself, and continue creating suffering, or you have the choice to let it flow, to let the feminine energy rise within you and take over the mind, which is the masculine energy. Let the feminine energy rise to the top. Let it be seated at the throne where it rightfully belongs. Let the masculine energy become submissive to the feminine. That's where the freedom is. That's where the liberation is. Letting your soul shine through. Letting the mind quiet. No longer listening to the mind, the masculine energy. No longer heeding its heinous and misguided suggestions. Truth does not live in the brain. It is full of lies. It is full of illusion. It will only lead you here. So just stop listening to it. You don't have to stop the brain, stop the mind from being what it is. You just stop listening to it. You stop identifying with it. You go, that's crazy. You're crazy. Keep on being crazy. I'm going to go do my thing. You just let the energy flow. Okay, I'm putting these back. I feel fairly crazy. I feel very out of it, and am endeavoring to just lean into that. All of this has felt like a dream, which it is, of course, but it is feeling very dreamlike, and has been for almost 2 weeks now. It's a strange sort of floating sensation, not quite out of body, not quite in body, present, here, aware, but just vaguely connected. Really the sense of nothing matters. I mean, literally nothing matters. Nothing is material. I still have cards falling out. That was a King of Wands. I'm just shuffling on why we're here. Yeah. Because somebody got something they want to say. Oh, look at that. Six of Swords. There's a Chariot underneath that. They never really went anywhere. They never really went anywhere. The emotions are just flowing. They're being ripped open. It's a scary feeling. And the natural inclination is to run from it. It still is. The inclination of the mind, of ego energy, is to run from emotion, is to run from the feminine. But that path just loops back around. The further we think we're running from the self, the more we are drawing the self in. The more you are resisting something, the more energy you're adding to it. Whatever you resist persists. There is no escape. There is no out. The only way out, the only way to release something is to stop trying to control it. Because of your attempts to control it, it is controlling you. You have to surrender to it. When you surrender to it, it surrenders to you. You render it inert. And then things are able to flow freely from there. It's time to turn and face what we've been running from. Let's cut the cards. to realize all of this running is not getting us anywhere, and it's certainly not, it's not accomplishing anything, and it's not producing any positive feeling. And all anybody ever really wants is to feel good. This doesn't feel good. It's time to stop doing the thing that doesn't feel good. Then the good feeling naturally arises, you discover. When you stop doing the thing that hurts, when you stop sticking your hand in the meat grinder, when you stop creating suffering for yourself, the peace and the joy that is intrinsic to your being naturally arises. Seven of Swords. We cannot look away. We can't look away. The bullshit is boomeranging back around. Unintended consequences. Unintended consequences of the ego are in exact alignment with the plan. That's the feeling here. All of the shit that's collapsing is meant to collapse. Let it collapse. Let it be destroyed. Yeah, it's part of the old paradigm. All of this stuff that we've been clinging to is being removed because it is not serving us to cling to it. Nothing can be destroyed except illusion. Let the illusion fall away so that the truth can be revealed. And I got that 8 swords with the 2 cups again. Whatever is removed, it's not for you. It is to your highest good that it now take its leave. Allow it to. Simply surrender to what is, surrender to the experience, and you will create no suffering for yourself. And even if that experience is painful at the surface level, painful at the level of form, which is totally acceptable, at the deepest level, you will feel peace. You will be sustained and satisfied. You will discover that the surface level of self can experience pain and sadness, while simultaneously the deepest level of self is undisturbed. Your joy and your pain, your sadness and your peace merge into one. It's a tower. And the 5 of Wands. And the world cannot escape this. Literally can't escape this. Everything we've been fighting against is coming to fruition. Everything that we feared, that we pushed away, is happening. Yeah. God, there's a lot there. It's there to teach us a lot of things, primarily to surrender, to teach us surrender. All of the worrying, all of the struggling against doesn't prevent anything. It just creates suffering, doesn't change anything. All of the struggle and the strain accomplishes nothing, so give it the fuck up. And just let be what is. Let it be. That is your only choice. You can choose suffering, or you can choose non-resistance. You can choose freedom. You can choose to stop playing the game and let things play out as they do. In making that choice, which is the only choice you have, the choice not to resist, the choice not to attach, not to identify with, not to personalize, but to allow, you are free. You are liberated. You are put in contact with yourself, your true self, your full self. The goings-on of the world no longer disturb you. The change of form no longer disturbs you. It's allowed. It's no longer perceived as problem or threat. It is no longer perceived as good or bad, right or wrong. Everything is understood simply to be. It is. In surrendering to the now and surrendering to what is, you align yourself with this higher perspective, the perspective of your true self. And all is revealed to be as it should be. In knowing this, in your direct experience of this, you feel the peace, the power, and the joy that has no opposite, that is naturally yours, that is a feeling beyond emotion. And you know your stability and your well-being is inherent and eternal. It's unlimited. Nothing affects it. You become unconditional. That's your power and that's your joy, and you begin to derive satisfaction from that. And then you're free. You're free from conditions. Conditions no longer affect you. They continue to exist. They just don't have any bearing upon your experience of them, your experience of yourself, your ability to experience peace and joy and satisfaction, unrelated to the conditions themselves. Forced to look. Forced to look. Yes, there's a lot of spying energy. Yes. But this is the overall energy. This is the energy of the connection. And in the mental position, forced to look. Eyelids peeled back, cannot look away. Introspective, forced to face this, forced to face the truth that things are collapsing around us. There's disappointment, but a lot of it is disappointment in the behavior. There's a level that's fighting this, absolutely. But then there is a level that is seeing none of this has been to our benefit in the first place, at least not in the way that we perceived it to. That these things are supposed to collapse. There is some disappointment directed at the self for the resistance against this. None of it matters. None of it matters. You can surrender to it all. What's in 3D? Knight of Wands. It feels, it's been flaky. I'm not going to say that it still is flaky. There is that in and out, but it's fading. It's fading. There's a desire to change that. That's a part of the disappointment. Realizing we've been going halfway with things, just dipping a toe in, but no further because it didn't feel safe. We're no longer satisfied with that. Satisfied with being held back and half-hearted because of fear. What's in the soul? Temperance, yeah. The soul is stepping up and playing the adult here and saying, look, it's time to examine your behavior. It's time to acknowledge that you're the reason for your unhappiness. You are the reason you're not happy. You're the reason you don't feel good. All suffering is self-created. Everything that is falling apart on purpose, for a good reason, for your benefit. Stop fighting it, let it happen, and even if it's painful, you experience no suffering. There is an important difference. When you are not resisting what is, even if what is pain, when you're instead present with it and consciously accepting and embracing it, you transmute that experience immediately. And even the experience of intense, excruciating pain, emotional or physical, or both, becomes something else. It doesn't change, but it it's infused with this light, with this grace and ease, with a beauty. It becomes sacred, it becomes holy, it becomes something that fuels consciousness, something that is appreciated. Message from the universe. Okay. Yes, it'd be easy to say we're walking away from 8 broken cups. That's not incorrect, but we're being forced to face the broken cups. We're being forced to see again. Why are we so upset? Why are we so upset about some busted, shitty cups leaving or walking away from them? Why are we so upset about donating a bunch of articles of clothing that we no longer want or wear, that they don't fit, they don't even match our expression of self? Why are we so upset about trading in the old used car that is on its last legs and really struggling, and that would only take more money to fix than it would to buy a new one? Not saying any of that is wrong or bad. It's just look at it. Look at that. Face that. Acknowledge there's something here, and it's resistance, that is creating suffering. Why is this so hard? Because we're resisting it. Because we're mentally characterizing it as bad in some way, because we have invested in an identity created by the mind, invested in a narrative, some identity, some self that has a past, that has a future, that has all of these characteristics, and because characteristics are changing now, that identity is under threat, and that's why we're resisting it. But that identity is an unhappy identity. That's a piece of it too. We have invested in a self that, as a key characteristic of that self, is unhappy. And now that that unhappiness is leaving, we're fighting it. It's seeing the thing in you that wants to be unhappy, and seeing how by your identification as that self, as that unhappy thing, you're actually resisting the change of the unhappiness. You're actually perpetuating the unhappiness because it builds up and continues this identity, this sense of self. When you see this and you stop identifying with that mind-made self, then the unhappiness of that self ceases to matter. It's no longer you. It's no longer yours. And now you can make the decision not to perpetuate, not to create any more suffering, and to let that self be diminished. That self which had built an identity on suffering, on sorrow, on grief, on unhappiness. You let that self be destroyed. You let that self, that identity, perish. You let it diminish. By the recognition there is no joy there. It was an identity created unconsciously, and it is not yours, and it is not something that you have to carry forward any longer. What's in the final outcome position? That's really nice. It's very shy. It's very timid. It's a Page of Cups. But it is new love. It is new understanding. It is the fading of this in and out, flippy floppy, tomfoolery kind of behavior, and the shifting into something else, a new wave of innocence, the embracing of the unknown. Wanting to see, and I don't know why I wanted another card off the top. Justice, coming to balance. Let's clarify. Hopefully my phone doesn't die because it is very low on battery. Knight of Swords, crossed by the star. Ten of Wands crossed by the Two of Pentacles. Eight of Wands and the Hanged Man. We've been stuck here for too long. It's a breaking point. It is a breaking point. It's time to let this go. It's time to stop fighting, to stop trying to control it all, to take the hands off the wheel and just let it happen. To realize the power, the victory is in surrender, is in the expansion of our perspective. We can always find the perspective of the highest self that sees the benefit in all things. When we align with that perspective, we feel the peace of that. We're no longer resisting what is. We are perceiving it as right, as good, even something that the mind would call a problem. We can find a way to perceive by ceasing identification with the mind, by backing up into the observer standpoint, and then expanding into the broadest perspective of the highest self. We can perceive that which the mind sees as a problem is not only not a problem, it's a good thing. It's absolutely right and important and beautiful, and we can appreciate it even. Tell me about this Page of Swords. I just got a Seven of Swords flip, which was exactly what that Page of Swords was looking at. Looking at the bullshit, looking at the deception, looking at how we have fooled ourselves, how we have been perpetuating this narrative of unhappiness and identifying with it. And because of our identification with it, we've been continuing it. We've been hesitant actually to even let it go, because we had this sense of self, this warped sense of self from it, this sort of twisted satisfaction. Seeing that there is a thing in you that craves unhappiness is hugely important. Once you see it, you can stop identifying with it. When you stop identifying with it, you no longer are feeding it energy by aligning your perspective with it. And then it starts to just play itself out. It starts to peter out. It starts to fade. Again, you don't have to stop that train. You just get off the train. When you're not on the train, there's nobody feeding it coal. Eventually, it will run out. Knight of Pentacles. This has been stuck in our vibrational craw, as Abraham likes to say, for a long time, and it's time to face it. This is an important lesson. Page of Pentacles. It's also a just stop and look. This is the environmental energy around the Page of Swords. The Page of Pentacles is why the Page of Swords is here. We're here to stop and look at this so that we can face this and actually learn this lesson. It's time to face what is. It's time to embrace contrast, to stop denying it, to stop pretending it's something else, to stop looking away from it. It's time to face what is. Why is the Page of Pentacles here? Page of Wands, so we can move on. So we can move on. Learn this lesson and move on. And then we don't have to keep repeating this cycle over and over and over. It's time to get off this bus, to get off this ride. It's time to be done with this cycle and move on to something else. The soul has asked for this. But the only way we release this energy is by, the only way we release ourselves from this energy is by releasing the control over it. That's how it all comes to flow freely. We have to stop fighting it. We have to stop controlling it. Let it be what it is. Face it fully. Embrace it. Just be present with it. And then it no longer has power over us. And it is free to come to balance. Energy balances itself naturally. As long as you're not restricting it by resisting or attaching, it takes care of itself. The way you stop resisting or attaching is by embracing it in neutrality, as the observer, as the witness, facing it fully, just accepting that it is, ceasing the characterization of it. You can cease the characterization of it by ceasing identification with the mind. It is only the mind and the ego that ever judges or characterizes. So you can safely ignore those judgments. Remind yourself, become aware, it's only the ego that casts a judgment. Step yourself back, recognize that is not you, that is the mind. And then from your neutral place, observe and accept what is and discover the empowerment and the peace of that. What's right with this Knight of Wands? All of this is happening for masculine energy. I am pulling on the soulmate cycle, but masculine energy exists within each and every one of us. These are lessons that can be applied at the internal level for everybody. Why is this Knight of Wands here? Tell me about the Knight of Wands. We're being pushed to move, to make a move, to move a new direction. The inclination is to run from, but the way the energy works, the way it always works, is we're actually running towards. We are running towards that swamp thing, that thing that is rising from the marsh. There's no way to get away from it. The further we try to run, the closer it gets to us. That's how your shadow works. Yes, you can't outrun your shadow, but you can turn and face it, walk towards it, and collapse it. There's no more shadow when you're pressed right up against it. It's time to turn and face this, and to face it fully. It's just time. It's time. It's divine timing. It is the energy aligning for this to be revealed, for this to be released. Oh, and already it's just coming off the top. Ace of Pentacles. So that something new can begin. To discover the stability that is found in flow. That the balance is not found in standing still. The balance is found in flowing. That balance itself is not a thing that you have to try to maintain. Balance happens naturally if you just don't push against or cling on to. The balance happens. It's only the push and the pull that throws the balance off and creates the wobble sensation. If you let go entirely, if you stop trying to hold on to anything or push against it, the balance just happens. Everything flows underneath you, beneath your feet, evenly, smoothly. It carries you. It keeps you upright. It keeps you stable. You don't have to try to balance. You don't have to try to balance energy. You are energy. You don't have to try to balance yourself. Just stop fighting it. Let everything be as it is. Let it all arise. Whatever comes up to meet you, meet it head on. Face it. Look it in the eye and greet it. Welcome it with open arms. That's the key. Tell me about Temperance. It's time for something new. This is happening one way or another. How it plays out, I cannot say. But destined changes are taking place. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to decide for them to happen or not happen. They're happening. Just let it happen. Everything is changing. Just let it. Why is Temperance here? Tell me about Temperance. King of Wands. What's fueling that King of Wands? The world. You can't escape it. We cannot escape this card. The message is you can't escape the change of the universe, the change of cycles. What's changing? This behavior. Ego-driven behavior. The running, the fighting, the defensiveness, the pretense, the fuckery, all of that. Because the soul is standing up and saying, no more, no more. This is not satisfying. I am not satisfied with this. We're done with it. Why is Temperance here? Why are we done with it? Because it hurts. Because this hurts. It's not just unsatisfying. It's the the perpetuation of pain, the perpetuation of suffering, of unhappiness. That's what ego does. It creates an identity that is unhappy. And then it defends that identity tooth and nail, even though it means continuing to suffer, to writhe in pain. The soul is saying, no more. We're done with that. Stop identifying with this unhappy self and let it go. Let it die. Let the unhappy persona wash out. And if it feels like death, let it. It's only illusion that's dying. It's only unhappiness. It's this addiction to unhappiness that's dying. Let it die. Let it die. Let it die. Let the addiction to unhappiness die. Sure, ego will tell you that you're losing something. All you're losing, it's telling you that because it wants to perpetuate itself. It needs your energy to keep feeding it, to keep it alive. Let it die. Let that self be lost. That's not a self you want. It's not you, and it's not happy, and it's not leading anywhere. So let it disappear. Let it just evaporate. It's time for suffering to cease. We are not here to create suffering. We're not here to suffer. Pain, contrast, that will always exist. But suffering is different. The resistance to what is what creates suffering. And the telling of this unhappy narrative and the identification with that unhappy narrative, that unhappy, small, limited, sad self, it's time to let that go. It is time to let that go. It's not serving us. It's not serving anybody. It's not what we want, and it's not real. And we don't have to do anything. We don't have to change it. We just realize, oh, that ain't me. That's a bunch of bullshit. That is a mind-made story. That is a character created by my mind, created by the mind. That isn't me. I can safely dissociate from that. Truly, I can stop identifying with it. I can stop taking it personally. That's not my story. I'm good. I'm stable. I am happy. I am joyful. I am well. I don't need anything. I'm not waiting on anything for my happiness. My happiness is not dependent upon some condition. It is unconditional. It is true joy. I know true peace and stability. I don't derive it from some external thing. I don't derive it from the form that is ego, this false self. No. And if that false self feels threatened, then let it. Let it. Let it pass away. Nine of Wands. Right with the Eight of Cups. It's time to move on. It is time to move on. It's time to face this fully. And it's time to get away. To move away from it. Yeah, this card fell out. This is why the Eight of Cups is here. This is the environmental energy around the Eight of Cups. Exodus, it is facing it fully, but then it is, okay, we've faced it, we've taken the lesson, now we move on. We don't cling, we don't attach, we don't resist, we let it be, and we carry on to something new, new horizons, new adventures. Nothing needs to carry over. All of everything that we need, all of the data that we desired from this experience is automatically gathered. There's nothing we need to do. It's here. The moment that you face it fully, you are embracing it as it is, and you don't have to decipher it. You don't need to pull apart that data. By your embracing the entirety of the manifested moment, all of the data is gathered by the universe, gathered by your highest self. You don't have to pick out and pinpoint, I liked this and I didn't like that. All of that is just ego anyway. You don't have to say, I liked this when you didn't like it. You don't need to do that. You just embrace it as what it is. And the universe knows. It communicates through feeling, not words, not comprehension at the mental level. This is a challenge to express. What's read with the Ace of Wands? Eight of Wands. Time to fucking go. It's time to go. And it is just about that open flow. Staying open in the flow is all that's necessary. Letting things happen. Letting life happen through you, around you, for you. All you ever got to do is be open to it, is to let it happen, to let the flow take you. Flow with the go. There's no effort required. You don't have to push anything. You just allow. The universe is curating your entire life experience, and you don't need to dictate anything to it. All it needs is for you to taste what it gives you, because you are the universe. It is living through you. It is the universe's desire that is being informed by your experience of what it is delivering to you. So when you are delivered the plate, your only job is to eat what's on the plate, is to accept this is what's here. And then you don't have to say, I liked that and I didn't like that. You don't need to say any of that. All of that is absorbed by the universe, which is you. As you are allowing that experience, the universe is going, okay, more of this, less of that. I see. And it can only do that clearly when you're not standing in the way with some mental ego version of self, standing there saying, no, this shouldn't be this way, I don't like this is wrong, this is right, it should only ever be this. Just step that small, limited, egomaniacal King of Wands self out of the way, recognize that's not you, and you don't need to listen to it. Just, all right, the phone died, so I'm gonna keep this quick, but finished out the reading. Final two cards clarifying the Page of Cups and the outcome position. Seven of Wands and the Queen of Wands. You can't fight destiny. You cannot escape a manifestation. The more you try to push it away, the more it just comes to you, and the universe will rip apart the world around you to bring you what you have requested. New beginnings are coming, one way or another, like it or not. That's what's happening. Everything is changing in this energy. You can resist it and create suffering for yourself, or you can just go with the flow and experience the peace of surrender, the joy, the power of surrender. The only choice you actually have is to give in and to let be what is. So that's the message. It got a little snippy at the end, I have to say. This is just the feeling. How do I express this? The universe doesn't get mad. The soul is never mad. It's never upset. It's never disturbed. There's just this sense of, stop fighting it. Please, please just fucking stop. You are making this ridiculously hard for yourself. It's like taking a child to Disney World, and the whole way there, they're kicking and screaming and throwing a tantrum, and you can't bring them in the park until they stop crying. If they just stopped crying, they would go to Disney World and be so excited, be so thrilled. If they could just figure out that what they're fighting is what they want, that what you're resisting is what you desire, and it's so good, and it's so good for you, and brings so much satisfaction, you wouldn't be fighting it so much. But that's the whole lesson. The lesson is to have faith, is even when you don't understand how it all works to your highest good, you trust that it does, you accept that it does, you discover the peace of surrender to what is, and in that surrender, you expand your perspective to the place of perceiving that all is for your highest good, that all is as all should be, always, that your well-being, your security and stability are not touched by anything. In fact, that none of the things matter. That's not where your security comes from. That's not where your joy comes from. It's not where anything comes from. And so all of that stuff can just come and go. It can be what it is, and it doesn't affect you. It doesn't matter. Just stop fighting it. Stop creating suffering for yourself. That's it. That's the whole message. I didn't end up pulling another 3 cards because I want to keep this short so I can combine these videos and upload it. Anyway, that's the message. That's what it is. It resonates powerfully for me. Always does. I mean, I am talking to myself here, essentially, so no surprise. I do intend that it resonates for you, and I would love to know. If so, leave me a comment, like, subscribe if you feel so inclined. Just know that whatever you resist persists, whatever you repress must express. I'm not even trying to rhyme, it's just the way it is. It must express, and it will, ultimately. Just let it. And all you ever need to feel good, to feel peace and joy and stability, to find that unshakable place, is to surrender to what is, to cease the characterization, or rather the identification with characterization. You don't even have to stop ego from judging things. Just recognize it's only ego that judges things, and don't identify with ego. That's it. That's it. And then ego can go on its way. The mind can keep doing its thing. You're just not aligning with the perspective of the mind. You're not identified with it. You don't confuse it for yourself. So it can be whatever it wants to be, and you surrender to it as another part of what is. You accept it as more presence. Then you're transmuting the mind into presence. You are reducing it to its essential form, and it no longer affects you, and nothing affects you, not a single condition. You become unconditional in your peace and your pleasure. All it takes is to surrender to what is, to hold that space, that alignment with your true self, the highest perspective, that which simply is and embraces all that is as right and good. So it is. This is the message. I hope it resonates. Have a beautiful evening, my lovely collective. And just know that always and always, in every vector of time and space, you're fabulous. The universe is on your side, and I absolutely adore you. Take it easy.